Okay, welcome to Angel Space. We are the DeFi Angels, and if you haven't heard of us, we are an investment community in decentralized finance or the DeFi sector. We are involved in many different aspects of crypto, including providing crypto education, vetting new and existing crypto projects, and we also have a focus on social equity, including crypto advocacy work we've done on Capitol Hill. On Telegram, we have our awesome WIN group or Women's Investment Network, a safe space where women can earn and learn. We have our Deal Flow channel where anyone can show crypto projects, and our Discovery channel where scams and rugs are exposed. We also have a number of partnerships with crypto related companies. And you can go to defiangels.com to learn more and follow us on Twitter as our reach continues to expand. So for today's Twitter space, just a couple of quick ground rules. We will start with our panel, which includes a couple of esteemed projects as well as members of our DeFi Angels community. And we will do a Q&A with our panel, and then we'll do a Q&A with anybody that wants to join. So let me just start with some brief introductions. So hi to Justin, partner. Please introduce yourself.
Hello, everybody. My name is Justin. Back at it again for week number 4 here in our Twitter spaces, talking about a lovely topic today, rug pulls, which I am an expert in because I have bought many of them. So I'm excited for this one.
Unfortunately, I don't think you're alone. And that's probably why we have already this many people listening in. Hey, Susie.
Hey, I am Susie, also in part of the DeFi Angels.
And our projects here, Safe Solidity, welcome. Please give us about a 30-second quickie intro.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Jason, and I do business strategy with Safe Solidity. Safe Solidity is a digital technology company, and we offer a variety of tools and services to really all users, developers, anybody who's investing. And we provide a shield score, which is essentially an assessment of risk on a given smart contract through our token scanner.
Thank you very much. And we definitely use your product quite a bit here. And last but certainly not least, CoinScan. So happy to have you. Can you give us about 30 seconds on who you are?
Hey, hello. People know me as Hobo. I'm the COO of CoinScan. We used to go by Pluto Inu. If anybody remembers Pluto Inu, essentially we are a trading platform that offers a variety of kind of groundbreaking mempool tools to help traders stay safe in the wild, wild west of crypto.
That's probably one of my favorite terms to use right now is the wild, wild west of crypto, because it's literally what it feels like. There's so many things going on out there. You don't know what you're going to run into. So it's all learning experience. That's what we're here for. We do want to be able to answer everyone's questions if you do have any throughout it. After we're done doing our panel with our guests, we will take questions at the end. But super happy to have everyone here, and we have the perfect guest speakers for this as well.
And just for my my hosting here, CoinScan, what do you want me to call you?
You just call me Hobo.
Hobo? Okay. And
Yeah.
Safe Solidity?
You can just call me Jason.
Okay.
That's what my grandparents call me because they can't remember Justin. But it starts with a J.
So we always have a mix of crypto newbies and seasoned investors in the audience. And so it's always helpful to start with defining some terms. And so our topic this week is scams and rug pulls. So Justin, can you just give us kind of a brief overview about exactly what we're talking about?
Of course. So rug pulls are a fun term that gets thrown around a lot. There's a few different ways to define it. I'm going to start with the main one. But when you're thinking of a rug pull, you have to think of liquidity pools in the crypto world. A rug pull is quite literally when an investor launches a coin or a token. Once outside investors purchase that token and they put their Ethereum or Binance coin, whatever, and they swap that for the token, the dev team will literally pull all that money, all those tokens out of the liquidity pool. So that's where rug pull initiated from. It's like pulling the rug out from your investors. Pretty simple. The other way to define it, a lot of people like to use the term time rug or a slow rug, that's where the dev team doesn't necessarily pull the money out of the liquidity pool, but they will slowly over time either sell tokens or pull tokens from the liquidity pool, like without people seeing. They'll do it over time, and they'll lead investors to believe that they're actually developing the project and working on the longevity of it. But really, it's just a ploy to make sure you stay in it. You get your friends to buy more tokens, throw more money into the liquidity pool so they can keep feeding off of it. There's been a ton of that going on in the last year, and I still think we're in a stage where it's very, very high risk. I think there's one good thing about all the regulation talk that's been happening. I know the White House released their little statement last week for Biden's executive order, but I think there's going to be kind of with the crackdown on crypto and regulations as a whole, I think we can hope to see a lot less of those in the upcoming future. We'll kind of see how that goes, though. Scammers always find a way.
So Justin, I don't want to miss out on, the sweetest but possibly most evil type of scam, which is the honeypot. Can you talk to us about what that is?
Honestly, I didn't even think to look up a perfect definition for honeypot, so I don't even know if I'm really prepared to talk about that one.
So my understanding, and maybe the projects can give us a little bit more about this, but and this has happened to me before, you buy a token, everything looks great, you see a ton of buys on the chart, and all of a sudden you can't sell.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a key one, is having an inability to sell, or an ability to sell, but the team is able to maximize the tax. Let's say make it a 99% tax. So you can buy it at a certain rate, and then it just doesn't, you can sell it, but you can't. And those are the two types that I see.
Yeah. So Jason, Safe Solidity is, as you mentioned, you have a product. And usually when people start projects, when people start new companies, it is in response to a problem that needs a solution. So can you kind of go back before Safe Solidity existed and talk a little bit about why the need for a product like yours?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think everybody would agree that crypto right now is really hype based, right? Everybody wants to get behind as early as possible, get behind the newest coin that they think has that hype to drive up value. And what a lot of people were finding is that in that chase of finding the next token, that you were losing money, and nobody really knew why. Either, all you knew is that it was a dead project. And the need that we're looking to fill is we want people to feel better about tokens they might invest in. We want to make you more knowledgeable on what you're investing in. And that's what we're trying to do.
I think that's a wonderful part of the space right now, is there's so many people in it that have been burned that we're all kind of coming together to try to make it a space that's very welcoming and very accepting of all the new people that are coming into it, and trying to separate that from all the nasty people that are trying to take advantage of new investors coming into it. And as we've all been in those shoes, this is something that you can find a lot of passion for these new projects coming out, just trying to solidify this and get a hold on the market itself. I remember one of the first groups that I actually joined, it was all about the hype. So I'm glad you actually mentioned the hype to coins, because a lot of projects are, they launch as like community tokens and stuff like that. And they're based more on the hype of it and maybe the name of a token and the idea of what they can have, rather than having an actual product to show their investors. And people kind of get lost in that. If you're someone new that's coming into the space and you happen to meet a group of people or a person that that they know what they're talking about, they come across as having more experience, they talk almost like they're trying to sell you on their skill set. Those are the ones that are going to end up burning you. And that's kind of what happened to me when I first got into this. So that's why I'm so passionate about wanting to do this, because I don't want people to be in my shoes. I want people to know beyond that and feel a little more comfortable about their new adventure.
So I'm going to pose the same question to Hobo. What is the real world problem that your project is trying to solve? What kind of problems did you identify?
Yeah, so essentially I mean, the majority of my crypto career prior to starting CoinScan consisted of, really keeping an eye on newly deployed tokens and just trying to do what little research can be done on a brand new token and, try to get in as early as possible. And I think there's quite a few people in the same boat. As when you're doing things in a manner like that, more often than not, you're probably going to get scammed, right? Because like most contracts that are deployed are not going to go anywhere, and that's just how it is. But really, that got me thinking, like, what can I do to build a platform to minimize this for people that are in similar positions? Because there's obviously like functions on smart contracts that developers can call to make it unsellable, or you can see them pulling liquidity. So essentially what we've done is we have built a charting platform that also has a live dev wallet tracker into it, so you can see in real time what's happening behind the scenes. One of the phrases that we use that's my favorite is forcing transparency in a space of anonymity.
That's a good way to coin it, because obviously, this whole space is about being anonymous. Like, you can trade cryptocurrencies and stuff without people ever having to know who you are. But to your point with how your program works, you're able to kind of force that in a way that doesn't necessarily expose people, but it exposes their bullshit almost.
Totally. And so, yeah.
Yeah, that's those are all really, really good points. And these are two projects that we are familiar with, that we know folks from. These are by no means the only products out there that folks can use. There are so many tools, and we always encourage everyone to continue to do their research and find more tools. But Hobo, you raised a really interesting point about research, and that's a great segue into kind of our next piece of this conversation, which is kind of starting your arsenal, building your skill set into, because that's essentially what we're all doing, and on our own when we're making our decisions on where to put our money in crypto. So Justin, you want to kind of lead us through some basics around vetting projects and the kinds of questions you might want to start thinking about?
Of course. We got together at the DeFi Angels and we put together a little list of things that we personally look for and things we like to check when we have new projects come across new projects, so that we know what to look for as far as safety. Number one, what I always look for is, if someone brings a new product to me, I always go to see if they have a website and established social media pages. The social media pages is a wonderful step to building a community. A token launching without some type of community isn't going to make it very far, but having a website that kind of explains the basics of what the token is, what the project wants to accomplish, that's absolutely key. If you can swing through there and you can find things like a roadmap is going to tell you, what the team wants to develop and when they kind of plan on doing that. And that's going to lead you to be able to kind of keep up on that project and make sure they're actually doing the things that they say they're going to do. Without that, you're more exposed to getting into a time rug, in my opinion. You'll see things grow. You'll see even if a community is established, you'll see you'll see the project continue to grow in the sense that more money keeps getting poured into it. But if they're not hitting deadlines, if the team's not trying to keep up on it, then you're essentially just kind of throwing your money away into a blind spot almost.
Yeah, just to add to that, and I'm sorry I dropped off. My 3-year-old was saying that she saw ghosts in her room, so I had to.
Oh no, that's important. That's very important.
Welcome to my
Family
life.
Yeah, family life, But just to add to that, identified marketing objectives should be a big one. And, you don't see it too often. Sometimes you do, but at least measurable marketing objectives that can be outlined in the roadmap, as you were saying.
Absolutely. And something I'm noticing coming up, because you still have projects launching that are open about the idea of making short-term money. They kind of advertise themselves as Ponzi's. They're pretty realistic about it. But marketing objectives is a big one. And something that I don't really like so much is the main focus getting shillers and call channels to talk about your tokens, because all that's going to do is get more people to buy in so that everyone else can kind of dump on them. So there's a few more aspects that kind of go into that, but you're absolutely right. Having a detailed marketing plan, that's absolutely key.
I wanted to chip in here. I'm at dinner, so I've been muting myself, but glad to be here, and I'm also glad that Safe Solidity and CoinScan are here.
Heck yeah.
I tend to trade mostly what people call nowadays blue chips. In the old days, they were all shit coins except for Bitcoin, but that's not really how it is. We all know that. There's a lot of really valid projects out there. So I just wanted to chip in and say, the main thing to do to avoid scams and rug pulls is to not buy microcaps and freshly launched pairs. But the thing is that we all want to see those amazing degenerate gains. And so I also don't necessarily follow this. But for new people in crypto, it's like traditionally you might keep 50 to 70% of your portfolio in Bitcoin and Ethereum. You might keep 20% in larger mid caps, like, things that are more the size of like Chainlink, Algorand, whatever is these projects that have proven that they're valid, that are not going to rug pull you. And then you put maybe 5%, whatever your risk profile is, into these small newly launched coins. And for me, like, definitely I've used Safe Solidity a lot. I really like the tools that CoinScan are presenting as well. It seems like they both are really like fulfilling their own roles. But I think I noticed like a lot of new people in crypto, like all they do is the microcaps or the shit coins, to be honest. Or, and that's the way where it's like people say, well, Bitcoin or Ethereum are too expensive. But if you do have a plan where you manage to keep half your portfolio or more in these larger caps, you have some resilience, and then you can take these really high risk plays, and for me, like, that's an important education in crypto. I was really happy to get it when I started some years ago. That was basically, and I haven't followed it. Okay, to be honest, like, I'm not necessarily following it. I do take way more risks than probably I should, but it's just because Bitcoin seems expensive or Ethereum seems expensive does not mean that as a long-term crypto investor, you should not be taking refuge in these more sustainable, proven projects. And it's very easy to make huge gains on Ethereum by gambling on live pairs. And it's even easier to lose them all right back to the market. And in 5 to 10 years, when you look at the price of Ethereum, you might really regret, putting most of your profile in high risk projects. So that's my sort of educational piece.
You raised a couple of really good points. One of which is, we always say never invest more than you can afford to lose, but hidden kind of deeper in that is, you're right. People are coming in because they see big gains. They see that potential in crypto, and that really is the kind of the adrenaline pumping, risk pushing part of crypto. But there are a ton of solid projects, number one. And number two, once you make a little bit of money, then those gains are what you can use to reinvest into higher risk products. And there really is something to be said for strategy in this space, and it's important to stick to it, because we do it ourselves often. Our emotions kind of take over in those high stress situations when you see a really big gain or when you see a really big loss and you start making bad decisions. So if you have something to fall back on, that's a really important way to kind of protect yourself. And the other thing I wanted to say, and I think that the traditional investment landscape is seeing the value in this, is that in crypto you can make investments of pieces of quote unquote shares. You don't have to buy one full stock. You can buy pieces of it. And so that's kind of the beauty of investing in these small cap coins.
And something about like the term that you're trading on as well. It's like people in a crush, you want to get 100x in one day, or 10x in 1 week. Like, that sounds really good, and that can happen. But if you're willing to say, well, what is Ethereum really going to do in 5 or 10 years? And excuse my son, but certain smaller cap coins, there's a potential still to make multiples if you can wait some months, for example, where there's a much lower risk profile of being rug pulled. And it's just because they already are large caps or seem expensive, like it's a good idea to kind of have a balance in your portfolio, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I think the whole conversation though is how to mitigate some of the risks associated with whatever portion of your portfolio is allocated to microcaps. I think
Absolutely.
what you're saying is 100% valid, and I hope most investors are doing that. Is, this is kind of their side money that they're going to try to maximize, knowing that there's a lot of risk. So I
I
agree.
hope so. I have a feeling though that so many people who came into crypto in 2021, they skipped right past that lesson, and they only want a Shiba. So yeah, I agree. I just think it's part of the education about avoiding rug pulls is to recognize that all crypto is not tokens. And like when I see new Facebook groups on crypto and stuff, everyone's investing only in these. It seems like, you know, and then some people will make it, but 99% of them will be burned.
It's that degenerate culture that we've really come to foster and withhold, and I'm definitely guilty of that too. It's just so easy to look at coins and projects, and the hype is the big thing, but it's easy to look at these low microcap projects and think, wow, what if? The what if will kill you. What if this goes? What if this pops? The most developed and established projects can still always fail. I don't care like how great the team is or what their product is that they're developing. There's always that risk that they can fail. So it goes back to what Agata said. Don't invest more than you can't lose. There's a safe way to do it, and then there's the risky way. And if you're doing the micro caps, that's definitely the biggest risk you can take.
Well, the research also shows that there are many, many more younger investors and, therefore kind of less experienced investors in the crypto space. So I think that's why, the risk-taking mentality is much more prevalent here as well, because you don't have to invest in, a $1,700 stock. You can invest $2, on a BNB coin or a piece of one, and it doesn't feel like you're losing that much. And so and that's the danger is the lack of experience.
Hey guys, David
Hey,
here.
David.
Hey, Mr. David.
Hi. Hey, real quick shout out to Jay from Safe Shield, who we kind of went through some fire together before, and I've never heard his voice. So, what's up, Jason?
David,
But anyway, hey man, nice to see you. Just a couple of things to tag on to what Zaz was saying. Another thing, until very recently, if all you did was play with microcaps, when at the end of the year, when it's tax time, you might have a heart attack to see how much you spent in gas, ETH, playing the shitcoin market, right? So if you're not thinking about it, then you're just being Mr. Casino. You may be wiping out your gains or worse just on gas fees, although
I
it
was
has
definitely
gotten.
guilty of this over the summer.
Well, I think a lot of us. I mean, there was even the gas token, right? That did the weird thing that gave you a gas refund, sort of, but it showed you your number, and mine was shocking. And
Yeah, it was
so
depressing, man.
yeah,
I'm
seriously,
my entire gas fees would have paid my house mortgage for 12 months
right.
plus my car,
So
I think.
yeah, it's like you're being charged, $100 to sit at the roulette table, and you're not thinking about it until next year. But my main point was the things that everybody else had said leading up to this, including what Solidity does and CoinScan. Um, the cliche is do your own research. And I think it's really important to let people know that do your own research. Not only is some of that stuff opaque to the casual person who still might be trying to do their research, like, is the community cool? Does the dev have a reputation? Blah, blah, blah. But now do your own research can also mean finding and using the right tools like these guys have brought along and others, right? So I think that's kind of an important thing to make people aware of going forward, that do your own research. It doesn't have to be just sitting in a Telegram, for 72 straight hours and see if it feels right. We have actual tools now that can, actually give you some feedback so you've got more confidence, which comes back around full circle to your risk tolerance. And, it's old school as hell, but if you sign up for a 401k with Fidelity, the first question, if you're going to take the option to manage it yourself, is what is your risk tolerance? It's literally a slider, right? Like, when do you plan to retire? How old will you know? What are your goals? What's your risk tolerance? So I just want to reiterate, you know, and of course, I, you know, my apparently my risk tolerance is what you got. But anyway, um, all of
No, it's a
that,
very good point, David.
all of that, and a free bag of potato chips. But the main thing, do your own research, should now include the tools that are available because they're really making the research, you know, it's turning data into knowledge, right? And that's really
I,
powerful.
I think looking at what Safe Solidity and CoinScan do also, even regardless of the tools, is education itself, which is like look at
Yeah,
holder counts, look
yeah,
at
yeah.
what the functions are, you know, and the mempool stuff is like next level, for sure. But yeah, I think like definitely Safe Solidity has been a convenient tool, but it's also really like gotten me to just learn how to look at these things myself as well. So that's pretty cool.
And you know,
So
how many people actually go to the EtherScan website pages that tell you how to use the deepest recesses of EtherScan? Almost nobody, right? So that's another thing that these tools bring. So you're not having to do artisanal, handcrafted EtherScan digging necessarily that you weren't going to learn in the first place, even if you know about it, right? So all cool stuff.
Yeah, EtherScan's a wonderful tool to actually utilize. That and BSC scan, of course. Then they're both learning curves in their own respect. Like if you go on there and just kind of look around, like you're gonna get lost as a new investor to begin with. Once you learn like the basics, like if you can find a token contract on say Dex tools and you can look it up on EtherScan from there. Once you learn the kind of the basics, like looking at transactions, checking wallets, seeing stuff like that, it doesn't seem so scary anymore. So maybe if there's interest in this, we can go a little further. Maybe we can have a night on Discord where we actually go through EtherScan and look at some things together. It's a very good point, though, David.
So I was going to ask Justin to get a little bit deeper into some of what we're talking about. I know that there are kind of some more technical questions that we can ask products and projects. Can you get into some of those more technical questions and kind of explain what we're talking about? And I think, for Hobo and Jason, if you want to chime in at any point, because a lot of these things I think will kind of lend themselves to what your products provide as services as well.
Sure.
So Justin,
Yeah.
you want to get us started?
Yeah, starting off, just being able to ask questions. I'm very big when I go looking for a new project and I find a way to communicate with the team, whether it be via Discord or Telegram or even Twitter. I'm very big on being able to ask them questions. And a huge red flag for a not so legit project is if you start asking the dev questions and he either starts getting frustrated or he's ignoring your questions or he's dancing around your
Or
questions.
he bans you.
Or he bans you from the Telegram. I wonder if anyone can tell we've just had some recent experience with this.
Our dev is sleeping.
Yeah, or the dev is
Yeah,
sleeping.
Dev.
If you have
or
Dev
even
driving
worse,
new Lambo.
what about Dev Dead? I've seen Dev Dead
Yeah,
as well.
yeah. That one dev died supposedly.
I think
I have
really
had a dev die as well of COVID, supposedly. That's just sad, but it's like, really?
I think
Yeah.
a
But you
key
gotta let them sleep.
validation point should be an ability to identify the dev team or admin team quickly. Right.
absolutely. Yeah, as soon as you can kind of get a feel for when you get into a community if things are too quiet, if you notice people aren't talking too much, maybe it's the same people that's talking amongst each other, then there may be some digging you have to do there. But yeah, through that, you should be able to get to the website, white paper, and stuff like that. But one thing I really, really wanted to talk about was to look out for when new tokens launch. There's a lot of scammers that kind of keep eyes out for this. Very hyped up projects, very hyped up tokens, and they will go as far as making copycat tokens that have like the same exact name except for one thing missing, the same symbol that they'll upload it to Dex tools, and those will essentially be honeypots in which you can buy into them and you won't be able to sell after. But keep an eye out for that when new projects launch, because it happens all the time. You may find a new platform like Safe Solidity or CoinScan that's designed to keep you safe, but when they do their launch, people may do copycats that try to take your money for that stuff. So please keep an eye out for that. And then one other thing that I love to look for when new products are launching, it's very common for developers to lock the liquidity, meaning they'll use some type of outside source such as like Pink Lock or something. They'll actually lock the liquidity that they've provided to launch a token. They'll lock that for a certain amount of time. And you can customize that. However, some people will lock it for 500 years, basically saying it's locked forever. Some projects will lock it for 2 months. That's something to keep an eye out for. And if it's something that short too, I would watch, of course, what happens in 2 months, the actual progress of the token itself.
What's a good length of time for liquidity to be locked? Because I've seen anywhere from like 24 hours to a year.
I personally like to see like more than a month. I've seen some on BSC where it's like, we have 7 days of liquidity lock. It's like, are you kidding me?
If I
So
don't
you
see
like,
it locked for a couple of years, I'm looking at it funny.
I mean, I don't mind. There's honestly like there are times where liquidity not being locked is important because a project is maybe potentially forking and they don't want to lock all their value up. But that's a pretty risky situation, you know. I mean, I've chosen to do that before, but yeah, in general, for like unknown new launches, you want to see a lengthy time.
I would say 6 months to a year.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Jason, what's your opinion on team tokens?
I'm not keen on it. I mean, it adds selling pressure. I would rather see tokens tax, transaction tax to drive ETH needed for marketing and research, or marketing and development, whatever they needed.
For newer folks, can we just explain what that is before we get any further into that? What are team tokens?
Team tokens, when a project launches, the team will set aside a certain amount of tokens for themselves. And the purpose of those tokens, as the project develops, as they get investors, they have those tokens so they can kind of slowly sell to keep development going, to support themselves so they can spend the time on these projects. You'll find a lot of more well-established projects with experienced dev teams and whatnot. They launch without really having to use team tokens. They'll kind of have their own, grounds established. They have a very long-term track or a long-term plan, I should say, for the project itself. So they don't set aside any team tokens for themselves. And kind of like what Jason just said, when you do have team tokens, you do run that risk of providing too much selling pressure, and it'll kind of start to look like it's a slow time rug. If development doesn't move as fast or whatnot, and you'll lose investor support as well as faith in the team itself with those tokens. So they don't necessarily have to be a bad thing, but always something to look out for.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jay.
I was just going to say, looking at new projects, I would prefer to see, a well-defined tax, nothing over, 10%, but I'd like to see, a well-defined tax that 5% goes here, 4% goes here, whatever the breakdown is and how it's going to be utilized versus team tokens.
Right.
Can I just let Hobo speak, because I saw him unmuting himself a few times.
Oh, sure. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I was just going to kind of add on to what you said, Justin, because on one hand, yes, team tokens can indeed cause selling pressure, but also at the same time, I feel like if it's at that point where it's an issue with how much selling pressure there is, I think that does kind of teeter into the realm of being a soft drug. I think that maybe developers shouldn't give themselves tokens on deployment per se. I think developers and teams should have tokens themselves, just so they have some stake in what they are building, but I think that should be bought off the open market just like everyone else does.
Totally agree. or locked for a long period of time so they can develop their product first and kind of pull when things are more stable. But everything's circumstantial, of course.
Yeah, and one thing that I should do that I don't is kind of mark in my calendar when liquidity is unlocking in projects, because sometimes that is kind of a precarious time. You know, when you're talking about like a time rug or a project that kind of wants to make themselves look legitimate but has, you know, some longer term nefarious plans, that is a time when they will have access to a significant amount of that pool of money.
I've actually chosen to sell right before an unlock and rebuy back when they prove that they've locked. I mean, it's pretty, if you really believe in a project and they have to do that, but
That's an
it's definitely,
experienced trader move right there, though. You know what to look for and you're ready for it. Experienced trader move.
Yeah.
A couple of things. Also, some tokens have early investors who are vested, and there will be vesting unlocks you need to know about. So that's another version of it. But what I was going to bring up, and when I didn't mean to cut off Hobo, was we also need to be aware there's some kind of new regulatory environment coming our direction and funding projects with tokens. We don't know what that's going to look like, right? So that's something to keep in mind down the road when the feds complete their commissions and their studies, ICOs and all that kind of stuff, funding a project with tokens.
David, your mic keeps kicking out on us, bud.
You didn't hear any of that?
I heard little bits and pieces, but your mic kind of cuts out when you say important things.
Yeah.
Perfect. Is that better?
Sounds good for now. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I'll say it shorter so I don't waste everybody's time. I was just saying, bringing up the new, we've got a new regulatory environment that's unknown heading at us, and that may change the way things are done with projects that are funded by their tokens. You know, just something to be aware of. So, because it could change a lot of that dynamic.
Yeah, and I see we're about at 9:42. So, and I see we have a few new listeners. So, welcome. We are talking about scams and rug pulls. We have our panel, which includes a couple of projects that have some products that help keep people safe in this space. We are kind of getting towards the end of our panel questions. I've got a couple of other questions to ask, and then we will open up discussion for Q&A. So I did want to ask kind of a provocative question, which is renouncing ownership. I know not everybody agrees on this, whether this is a good thing, a bad thing. What do you all think?
It's definitely a common theme, like with the idea of decentralization, but renouncing ownership can kind of go one of two ways. And I'm more for ownership staying within original dev team that's actually, you know, developing the project, just because I want the longevity. I want to be reassured that someone's watching it and someone's actually going to be able to like take control of things so it doesn't get too out of hand. And I think DAOs evolving have kind of opened up a new language that people are still kind of trying to get down. But
acronym check? What's a DAO?
DAOs. DAOs stand for Decentralized Autonomous Organization. That is a protocol that is currently being developed that you get a stake in a project by holding tokens. And there's been a lot of back and forth because obviously some people can spend tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars to get tokens, and they basically own the protocol and a majority of the votes. So there's new protocols being developed in which people develop, like, say, one NFT, and if you own that NFT, then you have like one vote within that DAO. So thank you for calling me out on that.
I have a story of where renouncing ownership went a bad way, and also, like, I agree, Justin. Like, if I'm in a project that I really believe in is legitimate, like, I need them to have ownership. They need to have, you know, if it depends on what the project is, but renouncing ownership is something that used to be more important to me, and it was always when I was doing like random small caps versus a project that I really saw developing. But I did have an experience where my wallet was blacklisted early on in a project by accident, and they renounced ownership, and I was just fucked, and I lost literally like 3 ETH. And it was basically like, Well, sorry, even if we could unblacklist you, we've renounced ownership. It's too late.
Zaz, you're having a rough night. I appreciate you speaking up, though. CoinScan, I saw you flashed your mic. What's your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, it really, I agree that it just depends on the project, and like real projects that have goals and a roadmap they intend to fulfill, control over a contract is something that is necessary for the longevity, but it's all dependent on several different factors, and I mean, like if a contract doesn't have any taxes, doesn't have any mint functions, doesn't have any malicious functions that they could even call, like even if it's not renounced, um, I mean, effectively there wouldn't be a way to scam if there's no malicious functions in it. I mean, if a contract has a mint function, for example, that'd be a different story because if it's not renounced, they can call that mint function and effectively dump all their tokens.
No, that's a very good point, and that it kind of raises the question of the complexity of codes and contracts, and you almost have to know somebody that can actually like delve into those to actually sift through it and figure things out. Because personally, myself, I definitely wouldn't be able to, but at the DeFi Angels, we have people on staff that are wizards at reading code and contracts and can kind of sift through that stuff. So if anyone ever comes across a project that they have questions about in that aspect, feel free to pop in our Telegram or Discord, ask us about it, and we will connect you with our resources.
One thing with Safe Solidity, using Safe Solidity got me a little more familiar with looking at functions. And like now, what I learned is early in 2021, renouncing ownership was like really important to me on these small kind of random plays. But it started to be that scammers figured out how to do it anyway. So they would either execute the command right before renouncing ownership or whatever. So even though you could see like that the contract had renounced ownership, they turned it to a honeypot like the moment before or whatever. So it kind of became where like renouncing ownership wasn't as reliable as I thought it was.
Well, and the one obvious disadvantage of renouncing ownership is that you can't change the contract, right? So that's where you get into having to fork and having to deal with airdrops and all of that, which could potentially be a mess, and a lot of times drives people away or makes them feel like a project isn't as legitimate, which isn't necessarily true. I mean, mistakes are made. This is all part of kind of the growth of any business.
I think that's a good point. You just brought it up is mistakes are made. With how the current space is, I think a lot of people are kind of inspired, kind of how we are, to want to make this a safe place, want to develop projects that are actually legit and stuff. I think a lot of inexperienced people are biting off more than they can chew, and they're starting projects that they don't really know how to handle or promote the longevity of it because they just don't have the experience doing it. So that'll also be something to look out for when you're doing your due diligence and research on new projects is get to know the dev team, try to understand their past and see where they're coming from, because that's definitely something you want to look out for.
Well, and another piece of kind of the beauty of the crypto space is that unlike, existing institutions, established companies, large companies, you have access to the people that created the product, the people that are still in the process of creating the product. So not only do you, in some situations, have, a say, a vote in some of the decisions they make, but you can actually speak with those folks. You can ask them these questions, and they should be available because the majority of these projects, at least at this point in the history of crypto, of DeFi, most of these projects are not fully formed yet. There's still a lot of growth, a lot of things that have to be done. And so you're investing, we always kind of say you're investing in someone's dream. A lot of them don't actually have a product to show you yet. So there's a high level of trust that has to go into this, which is why we go into all of these questions that you really should be asking and they should be answering.
It's almost like they're selling you on a promise of what's to come. And granted, there are devs and teams out there that, they fulfill their promises, what they're starting is legit and whatnot. But there's also, I think a lot of people, NFT projects right now are huge. And I think a lot of people get in NFTs the same reason they get into cryptocurrencies is because, you want to make money. as what good as an NFT looks and as promising as a project is, if you take a look at the roadmap and the plans for utility and stuff, that NFT is going to have value, but it's not going to be the quick flip you think it is if utility is not coming until a year from now. In that sense, even making those NFTs to sell for that project, it's basically, the dev team trying to get funding to be able to do this. And it's not to say that it won't be a successful long-term hold, but just be wary of that if you're not playing with a lot of funds and you're looking for that quick flip, because things won't always turn out how you think they will.
And the decisions you make along the way here are really important because you see a roadmap, you see a white paper. Those things are also subject to change, but it really is on you because it's your money that you're choosing to do what you want with. It's on you to follow these projects as they move along and to continue asking the questions, because it's one thing if it sounds great day one, they have, a lot of hype, they are on voice chats 24 hours a day, but things slow down. Things do slow down. And so you have to keep folks responsible. You have to make sure that they're being transparent. You have to make sure that they're sticking to their own schedules, and continue asking those questions along the way. And Kay's in the audience, but one of the things that always sticks with me that she said from the beginning is that if they don't follow through with the things that they say they're going to do, then there's a problem. And you really should be extra vigilant on how it proceeds from that point.
When you invest in a project, always remember you're investing in the team itself. So the team itself, if they're not performing, you're going to lose money. You giving them your money, buying their tokens, you're banking on the idea that they're going to fulfill the promises and complete the tasks that they say they're going to do. So always be aware of that.
Now, I'm not saying this is generally you should always do this, but in my experience, if you're in these projects a lot, there's going to be ones that die, and if you start hearing the dev say like, it's over, guys, I think we just have to call it.
Oh, God.
And then you hear all these people in the community are going to want to save it. They think they're going to resurrect it. Personally, I'm not saying it's right for everyone, but get the fuck out, because if the dev has lost heart,
100%.
there is no chance. And so but you see it all the time, and I've had that mentality that you're going to resurrect something, but it may not be about a scam or a rug pull, but sometimes it is. Sometimes a coin has just the people who are the early holders, they've taken all the profit out. It's just crashed out, and the dev knows like there's no turning back.
Dude,
so
you gave me PTSD. All I'm seeing is quotes on Telegram groups saying this is a community project now.
yeah, I mean, it's
right.
like it can happen, but it's like 1 in 1,000, and like really, like if you're investing in a token, like the dev team is pretty important. So that's a good measure. I've seen it a lot of times where the dev is sort of indicating they're starting to say like, what, this doesn't seem like salvageable. As soon as I see that, I sell. And I just, it just is what it is. Like, you don't have to be loyal to these small projects, even though that's sort of like the brainwashed narrative in the space is like, you have to hold and that's the only way, but it's like, you have to protect your investment,
Yeah.
So
And
I'm just looking at the time. So I'm going to have a few more questions. Sorry, whoever was speaking, I'll let you go in just a sec. So I'll have a couple more questions after you're done, and then we're going to move to Q&A.
yeah, I was just going to say, if you go into a token with a trader mindset, it's best to keep the trader mindset and not let it turn into a long-term investment mindset.
Yeah, 100%. You'll notice as you trade more and more often, and the deeper you get into it, and the more used to this entire area that you are, your maturity as an investor will grow. Sometimes you'll kind of learn to cut the cord and let go of projects that aren't performing and stuff like that. Even if you're taking a loss, that it's absolutely for the best. I think one thing that's really gone around a lot is don't get emotionally attached to projects, because you can get into projects. Like there's projects that I'm in right now too that I firmly believe in the longevity of it. I definitely think they're going to go. But at the end of the day, if they start bleeding, the devs stop communicating, if things aren't going how they're going, sometimes you just got to let go. But just remember, your money is your money. And if you don't have it, you're going to be very upset. But yeah, I think we're going to start opening up to questions now for everyone else watching.
Can I ask one more question of the folks that we have on? last thoughts? Any questions that folks should be asking that we haven't already covered?
I think you guys covered most of it. You know, being able to actively communicate with the teams and have a clear vision and understanding of what the token objective is, what the mission is. You've read the white paper, you understand the purpose. You know, if you've hit all your check marks and you're communicating with the team, you'll have a level of confidence in what you're investing in. It's really hitting all the points and getting to the end result of I feel comfortable with this investment.
Thanks, Jason. Good way to piggyback.
Yeah, there is something else I would like to throw on top as well, bringing it back to when we were talking about renouncing. I mean, in some contracts, there's even ways for them to, renounce it, and then maybe like 100 blocks later, the ownership is transferred back, and so they can send a transaction and be like, "Look, we've renounced," and then before you know it, they have ownership of the contract again, and then they can proceed to scam. So, I mean, that's just another example of what I think you were touching on, Justin, of nothing is ever for sure in crypto.
You must be a code guy. You know a lot of good tips for like codes and stuff.
Not necessarily code guy. I've just been scammed in every way possible. I'd say.
Ah, yes, a club member. We're getting badges soon. We'll send you one.
Sweet, sweet.
But I appreciate you coming out. I absolutely appreciate your insights to things. So thank you so much. You guys want to hang out
Justin, that's a multi-million-dollar project, by the way. Badges for everybody who's been scammed. I think we found our winner.
You get an NFT. You get an NFT. After this, I'm on my personal Twitter account, Justin with the little diamonds, with a Kuma in the diamond. It's a Kuma, not a Shiba. I'm going to post our Discord on my Twitter, so if anyone does have any further questions that they don't get to answer or ask or whatever, please pop in. We're always on there. I'm always lurking. But yeah, we'll kind of start opening up the panel to more questions, unless anyone has any objections.
I had one additional thing that we didn't mention that was in our notes here is the multi-sig wallet.
Oh, yes. That's always fun. Multi-sig wallet. I mean, it sounds complicated, but it's not. Multi-sig is like multi-signature. So when devs and teams bring a project together, let's say they have team tokens or they have, access to the liquidity pool, a multi-sig wallet, it requires multiple team members to put in like their seed phrases or keys. It requires multiple team members to put them in so that not one person can just run away with all the funds. So that was a very good
Justin?
point. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, not you, other Justin.
Oh, that's the other Justin.
I'm muting myself. Hold on.
Yeah, go ahead. That's fine. That was funny. But yeah, multi-sig wallets are awesome. Always good to ask if the team is using one because it'll just solidify the safety aspect of things. I've seen projects launch and we've had them come in and out of our ecosystem at the DeFi Angels where they will launch and they will have a corrupt member on the team actually, post wrong contracts or something of the sort and actually run away with all the funds. So that is a very good point to bring up.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, somebody with 3 different wallets can multi-sign a transaction. So there's even risk with that. You just got to be careful of the project.
Of course. And I think the main lesson there is that scammers are very, very smart and they will think of any which way to get your money. So treat it like a bag of gold that everyone's trying to take from you and just make sure you're very careful with it.
All righty. So with that, we are going to open up for Q&A. If you would like to speak, feel free to request and we will bring you up. We do have a limited space for the amount of speakers. And I think, Susie, you want to start letting people in?
I just pulled up Sandstorm because he's been waiting quite a while to speak in. Hey, Sandstorm, how are you?
What's up, guys?
Welcome.
Yeah, what's up, guys? I've been enjoying the conversation really well, actually. Unfortunately, the time is crunched down to where I got to go, so I just want to make a quick statement and then I'm going to run. But you guys are hitting on some great points. You're educating people. I love what you're doing. You kind of lightly went over influencers, and me being an influencer myself, and I do my platform totally different than other influencers. You need to speak more on that. That the shillers need to stop the shilling videos are getting people wrecked constantly. Developers need to be more careful with who they're marketing to for all these shillers. They need to approach and do more AMAs with more uh, better influencers that are more professional and will ask tough questions versus an AMA with somebody that's just going to be basically giving them a hand job the whole time on video. It's completely ridiculous to watch somebody just praising somebody for coming on the channel and then not even asking them tough questions or even asking them about the project hardly at all. So I just wanted to make those statements real quick. If you guys want to talk more when I have more time, I'd be glad to talk to you. But I do have a another schedule that I got to go jump in with another project. I told him I'd help him out.
Sandstorm,
Th-
thank you so much. That's a great
Yeah.
question. I'm actually going to talk to that point. But every Monday at 9, we do this space. So we do welcome you and your input next week as well, because that's a very great point you just raised. On the topic of...
Absolutely. And influencers need to be held more accountable, in my opinion, and developers need to be more careful.
Yeah, 100%. And we have this culture where it's kind of socially acceptable, and so everyone's kind of just running with it. But for anybody listening that's curious about what he's really talking about, yeah, you'll see influencers on Twitter with lots of followers. You'll see that people are on TikTok now. Telegram's a big one for call channels and stuff. What the common theme is tokens. New projects will reach out to these influencers and they will either give them tokens to a project or they will pay them in ETH. All they have to do is get you to buy this new project's tokens. That's the whole purpose of the influencers, shillers.
The call channels are absolutely horrible and ridiculous and need to be outlawed at some point. You know, people need to stop using those. I've talked to a few tokens that they said they used the call channel to hype their project up, and I was like, well, that was a mistake. I can look on your chart and I can see exactly when you paid this call channel to do that, because right after it pumped, it instantly dumped. And then, you know, I have tokens all the time that are like, hey, how much for a token review video? And I'm like, I don't do token review videos. I will gladly do an AMA, but I'm not doing a token review video, not especially not the way that you're thinking that I'm going to do it.
Yeah, no, it's very well said. I appreciate you bringing that up. That just comes down to make sure you're always doing your own research, do your own due diligence. Never just buy a token or project because someone tells you it's safe. It's not always the case. Thanks again, Sandstorm. Slim Jesus, I see you hanging out, waving. I'm adding you right now.
Can I add one point to what Sandstorm was saying, which is kind of, you know, to be continued, but on the regulatory front, you know, there is some pending litigation. I know there was a recent 11th Circuit Court of Appeals decision that talked about, you know, shillers, influencers, and some potential ethical and legal responsibilities, kind of toying with what that means. You know, they're talking about unregistered securities, so some of this is dependent on how they end up defining crypto legally, you know, as we continue forward. But just,
I personally can't wait to see some of these people get addressed.
ARL, you hit it right on the head. Check it out. The regulations that are coming right now is in DeFi. That's why you're having all these rug pulls. You don't see this in centralized exchange, right? You don't see this. So what's happening is all these DeFi projects have not registered with the SEC. SEC has been doing reviews of these DeFis for the last 2 to 3 years, and they're about to put the hammer down. Look at XRP. And the last thing about Sandstorm is, if you look back at all of his videos, he's doing really great now, but his first 20, 30 videos were of bashing the whole projects that he's now shilling. He literally has flip-flopped.
Sorry, I had to remove you. I don't want to turn this into any type of drama thing. I do appreciate you bringing those things up, but I am going to stray away from that for now. Best safe practice is everybody just do your own research. Due diligence is very, very important. Any other people want to pop in, ask questions, please feel free. I am all ears. I don't only just talk, believe it or not.
And we are trying to keep this a positive space, folks.
Yeah, I'm not sure what he was referencing, but personally, I follow people as a trader. I follow a lot of people on Twitter, and it bothers me when I see folks with like massive influence, you know, obviously buying a very small cap token and then immediately, or being given it and then immediately showing it. I think that it can be a form. It's not like a rug pull or a scam exactly, but I think it's really good to be wary of influencers, basically. If you really want to get into crypto, you have to learn from all these people, but you have to be very skeptical. And it's extremely easy to, quote, make it if you have 200,000 followers and all you have to do is just buy a small capped coin and then tell everyone about it. And you're using your followers for exit liquidity. And we've all been used that way in this space. So
it is the ultimate Ponzi. Do not fall for it. Do your own research.
I think that a big aspect of it is, just like, sure, these influencers will say, like, not financial advice, of course. They all say that, but they've got 1 million followers and they're boasting a small cap, and they can have a huge effect on it. And even though they say no, not financial advice, like, obviously, like, people are gonna follow what they're saying, and I think it really boils down to, like, do you really want to take financial advice from someone like Jake Paul, or like, someone who's obviously, not financially, I mean, sure, he's doing well, but
I think part of the research is also looking at these influencers and their track record. And before you start taking advice from people, look at what they're getting behind. And it's difficult because, this space, there's a thin line between speculation and gambling. And it's important about who you follow and what they're backing.
It's sometimes also it's like someone has a lot of clout for really getting lucky straight up. There are people who are made into millionaires overnight in some of these projects, and it was not because they have an idea about analyzing fundamentals or whatever. And they're given a lot of credit, and just like, money makes money. So if someone is an influencer and they've made it by dumb luck, and then they can make it again by shilling to a huge amount of people to buy their own bags from them, it becomes a cycle of clout. So they might have what seems like a very good track record, but it's not possible for ordinary investors to have that because they have basically insider trading and all sorts of stuff going on for them. So I'm just I'm burnt out on the Twitter influencers for small caps in particular. Like, if a small project has major Twitter influence, just be aware of what it is. It doesn't mean you can't make money on it, but you have to really be aware of your entries and exits, in my opinion.
No, very good point. Yeah, you can have influencers talking about things and it'd still be legit.
And they don't all get paid, right? I mean, it's a small minority, but there are some influencers who are not getting paid and are doing this,
There's good
presumably.
influencers out there.
Yeah.
I have a plethora of them on my Twitter, as well as ones that aren't so good that I like to keep an eye on. But yeah, there's good ones out there. You can definitely find people, diamonds in the rough that will lead you in the right direction. It's bringing them out to the space and making sure everyone knows what to look for to find them.
You've got to learn from someone. So it's like, there's definitely, you've got to learn from all these people, but also be kind of like skeptical about if it seems like a really specific sale that's been going on or whatever, or really if it's a specific coin, there's so many people in this space that you can learn amazing things from that are not telling you about a specific project, that are not telling you a referral code that gets them bonuses when you fuck up on an exchange, because that's what a lot of these leverage referrals are doing, honestly. Like, there are really good influencers that are not capitalizing like that.
And there are some that kind of ingrain education into their communities as well. And that's a positive way for shillers and influencers to help folks in the space. But there's so much kind of behind closed doors discussion with a lot of these promoters and you never know. I mean, but I have heard, and I've seen lists, you see a new coin and they've got lists of who to contact. For these folks, it's 0.1 ETH. For these higher level folks, it's 2 ETH. And I've heard of people paying as much as $20,000 to get a pick, by somebody they feel is important and has clout because, they have a community of 50,000 people on Twitter or wherever it is that they're marketing. You will never, ever know with a lot of these folks what exactly they're demanding to make those quote unquote picks.
Yeah, and that makes millions. That can make them millions. If someone pays 20,000 to an influencer and they already have a massive wallet of something, can be. There are games on that level certainly being played and higher.
On that note, does anybody else have any questions they'd like to pop in and ask? If not, we will start to wrap things up shortly here.
All righty. So this was an awesome space. Thank you everybody who joined us. Thank you so much to Jason from Safe Solidity and Hobo from CoinScan. Thanks Justin. Thanks Susie, Zaz, David, everybody who kind of came up and spoke. We will be back next Monday at 9 p.m. I don't think we have our topic yet. If you have any ideas, please join our groups. Let us know if you have things that you want to hear about, things you want to learn about, things you want us to talk about, or if you want to be a panelist. We're not necessarily doing shilling of projects here, but a lot of the folks that are involved in projects are also experts on so many of these topics. So thanks again to our guests, and we will see you all next week.
Thanks, everyone.
Appreciate
Yeah,
you guys having me up here, and it's a pleasure being here.